Good evening, everyone. My name is Preston, and I'm former law enforcement. And the whole reason that Warriors of Raymond exists is because I myself was looking for something that I couldn't find. I was a police officer here in Texas and in Illinois, and for some reason I seem to have been deemed the crap magnet of every department that I went to. Even on my days off, when things are supposed to be going fine, literally plane crashes in front of me, and I'm enjoying a barbecue one day, and the next moment me and my wife are driving to a scene of a plane crash right in front of us, and I'm pulling out people out of an airplane in pieces, and my wife's watching this occur. So needless to say, I've been a little bit of a magnet. And in that time, I never realized what was going on in here because I was too busy doing the external. And over a period of years of seeing death and carnage, terrible things that no one should see, like many of you are experiencing, it started to get to me, but I didn't know it was getting to me. And it was like a slow drip that filled up a bucket that overflowed over a period of time. And what that overflow looked like was seriously bad night terrors, hitting my wife when I was sleeping. It was much like Chris Pratt on Jurassic Park whenever he would stand there with the velociraptors and put his hands up to get them to stop. Well, that was my wife because I'm standing out of my bed, unbeknownst to myself, in between reality and night terror, and she's trying to get me to calm down. Just sweating gallons of water, it seemed like, every night when these night terrors were happening. Just the most vivid, gory, graphic dreams that you can think of. The most just demonic stuff that was happening. You mentioned it, I had it. Unaliving myself, ideation. Inability to be around people who weren't law enforcement. Not feeling comfortable in large groups of people. At one point in time, I even remember I was hearing things telling me to do things to myself related to unaliving. I mean, it was bad. And unfortunately, they don't train any of us whenever we're coming out of the police academy or the fire academy, I would assume, for those of you who are firefighters and paramedics, or even in the military. They don't train us about this thing called PTSD or the effects that the trauma that we are going to experience in the efforts of trying to make the world a better place are going to have upon us. Now, all of us manifest in a different way. Some of us have gone our entire lives in law enforcement or first responders, whatever the case may be, and we didn't have an issue. There are still so many anomalies that psychologists and medical, those who are in the middle of studying the psychiatrics in the medical field still can't explain. They don't know why some people seem to have more of a apt to develop PTSD and why some seem like they're completely unaffected by the trauma that they've been subjected to. But that's not really important right now. We're going down a rabbit hole. So what we do here at Warriors is to facilitate what I couldn't find. It was actually around the communion table one day whenever somebody told me, hey, if you can't find it, because there's nothing for law enforcement really. You know, they say they have in-house whatever. Are you going to go to the in-house psychologist so they can go run back to your chief or your command staff and tell you that you're just screwed up in the head and that you shouldn't be on the street and they're going to take your gun and maybe even your career? Probably not. That door can stay open as long as it wants to, and I ain't walking inside of it. And that was me too. I refused every critical incident stress debriefing that was offered to me, whether it be a terrible incident after a death of an adult or a terrible death of a child. I refused every single one because, hey, I'm the one that helps people. I don't need the help. I'm strong, right? And what happened was I realized that it wasn't about being all knowledgeable, having all these degrees, being the psychologist of the world, getting a Nobel Peace Prize because I'm just so smart. What anyone is looking for is just connection. Why do you think that the number one thing that people who commit unaliving is isolation? Because it's in that isolation that they commit the unaliving, right? So if you can take that variable out and make it to where you don't feel alone in what you're walking through, then you can drastically reduce the unaliving around America, which is, by the way, very, very undercalculated when it comes to first responders. You're a veteran. It happens 5-10 years after you're out of your service, they still count you. You unalive yourself one day after being terminated because your bad reactions to your trauma looks like bad behavior as an officer or a firefighter. The day that you're not in that commission anymore and you do that, they're not going to count you. You are not going to be recorded down as an officer or a firefighter or a paramedic who unalived yourself in the statistics. It's almost like you're nobody again. And I really wish that was something that we could change, and I don't know how to do that. I know it would start lower on a state legislative level, but there really does need to be something different. I know people in the military, and this is not to knock you people who have signed up for the military. That is a form of dedication that you don't have to deplete or to stomp on to show that this one is also just as valid as important. So I want to make that very clear. So I know people who have been in the military who were glorified security guards. They punched the button and the gate went up, and then the gate came down, and they just checked the gates, and they get 90% disability when they're out, and they only were in for 6 years. I know police officers that have been in for 20 years, seeing the worst carnage and terrible things that humans can do to each other possible, been shot at, and even shot. And when they retire, all they're going to get is a retirement. And they'll go to academy and they'll say, oh, first responder or veteran. And you say, oh, well, I'm a former first responder. Oh, no, you don't count. And I think that's something that seriously needs to change. I think that there are a lot of very, very, very underappreciated first responders who have endured stuff that no one should have to, and they don't get half the benefits that people who have never seen those things, smelt those things, done those things get. And once again, this is not to belittle those who do because of their military service. This is saying that, hey, this is a whole nother group that is being ignored that shouldn't be ignored. So this is what was happening with me in law enforcement, is we don't have just all this advocate for PTSD. And in fact, I had so many people say, well, I didn't know a police officer could get PTSD. I thought that was just something you got in the military. It's truly something that is unknown to the public for the most part. And it's kind of come to the light in the past 15 years or so, but not so much as it would be for veterans, right? Everybody's very, very aware of veterans and the 22 today, which is actually, it fluctuates in between 17 to 25 a day, to be honest with you. But it's just something that is uncommonly known to civilians and the world in general. And so when we have these situations develop where we don't have somewhere where we can go, we have to create it ourselves. And I say create it ourselves, but let's be honest, the only way that anything's going to succeed or has succeeded that I've done is because the Lord's help with me. There are times when I didn't feel like running an organization. We've been doing this for 7 years now here in the greater San Antonio area. There are times when I didn't feel like running an organization. I wanted to stay home. I didn't want to go to the meetings. We have 2 meetings a month in person. And those meetings are not about coming in and hanging out and being with the boys and girls that, law enforcement and military. It's don't come in those doors one way unless you're willing to leave those doors doing at least one thing different another way, right? Because you cannot get out of something doing the same thing over and over again. You have to develop a different mindset. So that's the purpose of what we do. Developing that new mindset that's no longer trapped and boxed in by the perimeters that you've set, that you unintentionally set because you didn't know what you didn't know. So the only way to stop us from doing what we're doing is to step up ourselves and be the ones that are leading the charge. All it takes is a willing heart to do what we do. And there's just so much that has to go into explaining what we do, what we've experienced, what works, what doesn't work, what stuff completely went out the window when psychology said that it should have worked, and the stuff that is the weirdest thing that actually worked for members that no one had ever read before. And so what we want to do is we want to start unpacking things on this channel of what that looks like by personal experience. This isn't something where we're guessing or we're assuming maybe this will work. No, we're going to talk about real life fire situations that have happened within Warriors of Raymouth. And in that, I want you to see yourself. And I think you're going to see a lot of people in the stories that you hear on here. And I think you're going to have a lot of things that are just those epiphany moments that are like, man, I never saw it that way, or I didn't know that's why I did that. Now, we are not medically certified. We're not doctors. We've been doing this standing on the shoulders of those who have done that work under doctoral certifications. And we will regurgitate that information, and we will mix that with our faith base and also experiences. And the solution lies within the mix of the three. But remember that you are always going to be the expert at your story. Never let anybody tell you that you don't know what you're talking about or your feelings are invalid, because no one can know your story more than you can, other than God himself. And so whenever another human comes to you and tries to tell you, you know what you need to do? I need you to do one thing. First of all, I need you to have some grace for that person, because they might have best of intentions. But more importantly, I need you to understand that the key lies within you. And that's the most important thing. When you go to a counselor or a psychologist, they don't come in there and give you the red pill or the blue pill and you take whichever one you decide and all of a sudden you're better. They sit you down in a chair and they find out, well, what's going on with you? Tell me about you. What was your childhood like? What was your upbringing like? And then tell me the situations that you're dealing with the most in your current life. It is not like they have a magic solution for you. And in fact, the solution, when I say it lies inside you, it truly does, because they're extracting information from you. And all they're actually doing at the end of the day is saying, hey, do you realize you just told me this, this, and this? And that's the answer. And you go, wow, I had no clue. And all they did was pull out what was already here. The difference is you having that epiphany moment to see it clearly. It has been scientifically and psychologically proven that groups that are peer-to-peer based significantly help the sufferers that are within those groups. Even sometimes more so than counseling, one-on-one counseling. Peer-to-peer is a connection that occurs. Now, a lot of us will go and maybe we made the mistakes a couple times of telling a civilian who's never dealt with any of those situations something that was really a knife in our heart. Like maybe it was a child death that you experienced on duty. And you tell them, and it's almost like you didn't realize it until the end of it that you were expecting a certain reaction from them. And then you get this like deer in the headlights look because they could never even imagine what you just explained happening, let alone know what to tell you once you just divulge this terrible situation that occurred to you to them. And you just look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, why did I tell you? You know, why did I tell that person? I kind of just wasted my story. And so you just start internalizing it and keeping it all in, because there's no point in telling these people because they're not going to understand. When you get amongst your own people, though you have different stories, they are similar stories where the emotions and the connections, the smells, the thoughts, the noises, the feelings, they cross and intermingle. And all of a sudden, you're able to start seeing yourself in others. And that's where the connection happens of, hey, I'm not alone in this. And that is the key. Nobody unalives themselves when they feel like they're not at the end of the rope. Nobody wants to not be alive. Do you understand that? If you're thinking about this right now and you're watching this video, it's for a purpose. And we're going to unpack a lot of things as we go through different segments on this channel. But you don't want to not be alive. I need you to say this. You don't want to not be alive. You just want the pain and the thoughts and memories and the feelings connected with those thoughts and memories to stop. Do you understand that? And sometimes we think, well, I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. nothing's working, and then we think, well, this is the only way out. It's not the only way out. That's why if you go to a psychologist and you don't necessarily click with them, go to another psychologist until you find one you click with. Because all you're really looking for is a connection. And when you understand that, it gives you so much more power, and you're able to gain control over those terrible thoughts about making a permanent decision for a temporary problem. And you're able to start climbing yourself out of the pit. But I need you to hear me on this. And if there's any nuggets that you take from this brief video that I'm doing, I need it to be this. You cannot fix what is broken inside you, a hole that is missing inside of you, by taking things that are third party and cramming them in, whether it be drugs, alcohol, high adrenaline situations, sexual experiences that are either non-biblical, outside the marriage bond, or you're cheating on your wife or your husband because it just gives you a high that you're chasing, a dopamine drop. Because a lot of us, we get so used to being up here on the dopamine, whenever we're not on duty, we start to crash, and that feels weird. So we want to bring up the dopamine, or we're retired, we get out of it, right? We're used to being up here, and when we get on here, this feels weird. Let's get that dopamine up. You cannot fix anything of this broken hole inside of you by filling it with any of the things we mentioned, plus many more. The best way for you to heal is by giving what you're missing to someone else. And that requires a tribe. That requires a community. And a community that understands each other. When our husbands and wives don't understand, and they love us more than anybody on the face of this planet, when they don't understand, it can tend to make you feel extremely alone. But you can sit in a group of men and women that you've never even met before, who have no idea what you've been through, what your life was like as a child, and all of a sudden, it's an instant connection because, hey, they get it. They get what it's like to sit there and have a lifeless child in their hands. Or to see someone breaking down on their knees as they're realizing that their brother, their mother, their loved one, their friend is not going to get back up again. Do you realize how much of a pool of isolation that makes you to experience those things? But that doesn't mean you have been isolated. You just need to be with like-minded people, which is another reason why we tend to only associate with each other. So we want to on this channel learn to break down the barriers that are keeping us isolated, but also keeping us from being the person that we used to be. There's no reason that being a police officer, being a firefighter, being a paramedic, being in the military should alter who you are. And our families deserve better than that. And we cannot expect our families to conform to our new altered state because it was altered by trauma. Nor can we react to trauma and become our family, our children's trauma, and expect them, well, you don't know what I've been through, so just deal with it. The burden lies upon us to say, how can I get back to being like me? Why is this happening? And most importantly, I need you to rip off this label that you have on your head that I'm a bad husband, I'm a bad wife, I'm a bad father, I'm a bad mother, I'm a drug user, I'm an alcoholic. All these things that you put here that don't belong here, because your identity is who He, the Lord, says your identity is. And I need you to understand that. You can be your worst enemy sometimes. We've unpacked so much that has so many subcategories right now in just these few minutes that we've been talking, but we're going to unpack it more one by one and break it down so that it's something that can be grasped, consumed, digested, and then a game plan be structured off of that, because we're men and women of structure, right? So let's develop a structured SOP for how we're going to go about this. Guys, I'm looking forward to talking with you more about this. I hope you're seeing yourself in the things that I'm seeing, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys down in the comments. Understand, again, nobody's perfect, but you're not called to be perfect. I want you to be you again. And that's what we're after. And so does your family and those who love you. So let's go after that together. And I'll see you guys on the next video.